Before we start this video, a large thank you to Santiago, Anthony, Zach, Elmakis, Grom, Kwanwi, Neil, and Luke for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And an immense thank you to Halo Burner and Porgello for their immense and continued support of the channel this month on Patreon. It is greatly appreciated, gentlemen, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, today we're going to go over some level design workflow. So we're going to keep it very basic this video, but we're going to go over how I would think about creating a level. And I'm going to do an indoor scene because it's generally easier and it gets this workflow across in a much more clear way. So I'm going to make a game object for my world. This is going to consist of all of the things like walls, rooms, doors, etc. And I'm not going to touch my interactables now, I'll leave them out there in the open. I'm going to put my world managers in a game object called managers. And I'm going to delete these 3 rooms I have here, and I'm going to just clear my nav mesh. So you should and you could use Pro Builder. It's great for prototyping. It is actually the best tool I think Unity has for this kind of stuff, for gray boxing, it's called. I've never used it before, so I'm not going to. I'm just going to start gray boxing with some basic geo. If you don't know what gray boxing is, it's basically making a very simple level layout with just very simple geometry, not putting in any textures and materials. Really just kind of getting a feel for how the level should be shaped, which is what most people do before they do level design. I sometimes don't do this, but I'm going to do it in this video because it is the best way to get a rough idea of how to create a little level without wasting too much time. So I'm going to make my sub-objects in the world, location 1 and then sub-location 1. Why am I doing this? Well, we have location, and then we can have our sub-locations. So think of this like crypts, hallways, we'll say boss room. And then in these sub-locations, we have things like floors and walls. I'm going to go very fast, so feel free to pause the video. So to gray box, I'm just going to make some basic geo like cubes, and I'm going to size them to the rough size of a wall I have, say, in some of my art assets. So for me, that's about 5 by 5, because that's just about how tall my walls are and the assets I'm going to use later. You can see here now I have sub-location 1, and I have some floors, and I have some walls. My floors are just planes. They're basically just, again, stacked together to create a floor. And now I'm going to make a little door here. It's going to be a shortcut. It's going to be locked. I'm going to put a red material on that so I can really see what it is. I'm going to change the name of it on the game object from wall to shortcut. Now I'm going to throw some pillars in here because I'm going to do a dungeon design. I'm going to keep it mostly simple for the sake of this video. I'll probably add some stuff after this video off camera because it does take a long time to properly set, dress, and decorate. Anyway, not getting ahead of myself here, I am going to now basically keep doing this. I'm going to keep pausing and snapping back via the magic of editing. But I'm going to make a few rooms just so you guys can see. And I won't record myself doing all this because it takes a very long time. And like I said, I'm going to try to condense this video as much as possible. This is Future Seb. It actually took me about 5 to 6 hours to record this video in its entirety because I made everything from the ground up. Okay, so now back to the video. I'm going to create some stairs. I'm doing this by creating some cubes and just stretching them out again. You can see them kind of just nudging them on top of each other. And there we go. Now we have a staircase into a sublocation 2. Now I'm back with sublocation 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the boss room. And this is why it's handy to put them in separate areas. You see, if I want to build it on the sublocation 0, I can just hide sublocation 1, and you can see now it's not in my way. That's why it's good to separate everything like that, because when you start building interconnected levels like this, it can get really annoying to actually build on top of stuff if other things are always in your way. So it's good to be able to disable it, and also when you're optimizing the game and disabling certain areas, this makes things like that a lot easier. So I'm going to just throw my site of grace here just like that for now, but this is roughly how it's going to look. I have an underwoven area that wraps around and kind of goes back into the main room, and I have that shortcut connecting the main room to the start room, and then I have 2 ways to get there. I have the top here, you can go through this tunnel, or you can go through sublocation 0 and go to the bottom, but both bring you to sublocation 4, and then sublocation 5 is the boss. So we have a shortcut here, and we have a little, I'm going to put an iron gate here so you can see an item through it, but you won't be able to open it from this side. FromSoft does stuff like that a lot. You can see an item that you can't get to, and it motivates you to find a way to get to that door or get the item. So this is going to be locked from one side, basically. You're going to be able to open it if you approach from the basement. If you approach from the top side, you will not be able to open it. So I could say shortcut locked, but I could say locked from other side. Just rename it however you want there. Now, we haven't covered doors yet in the series, but I think because of the nature of the next couple of videos, we'll probably do that really soon, although they are very basic. So I got my nav mesh baked, and you can see here, it's a good way to check too. My staircase, I actually forgot something because you can see it doesn't connect. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop that down. Looks good. Now I'm going to save this. And now if I go into the game, constantly go into your gray box and check scale. You want to make sure it's not too big or not too small. The last thing you want is to spend 6 hours on a level design only to realize that the scale is way off. constantly come in here and test and walk around. This looks pretty good. Generally speaking, I'm probably going to make it a little bit smaller when I actually put in the walls and the floors, because the gray box is not set in stone. It just gives you an idea of how you want the rough design and the feel of it when you're basically just passing through it. So you're probably going to change your level a lot as you're building it. I know I certainly do. I'm not a pro by any means in terms of experience compared to how many hours I have in programming, but I find a lot of ideas come to you while you're actually creating the level. So you might have a gray box set up one way and then think to yourself, actually, I have a great idea. I'm going to change this up. I'm going to put something else here. That happens all the time. All right, so here's the boss room. You can see Dirk's not really properly set up there yet, but that's where we're going to put our fog wall. Now, I'm going to use the Polygon Dungeons Low Poly 3D art set by Cinti, just because I already own it, and it's got a lot of modular assets. Use whatever art you want, obviously depending on what kind of level you're going to be making. This is going to be way different, but I sized my walls originally to be about the same size as these Cinti walls. Whoops, that's because I parented it. Let's unparent that and reset the size, and it should just about be the same size as these cubes I have been placing. So basically when I go to lay it in there, it snaps in there real nice. There you go, you can see, that's pretty great. Now, don't stress out. You're probably going to have instances where your walls and floors don't connect perfectly. Obviously, adjust it to make it as perfect as you can, but don't be afraid to upscale or downscale certain things and kind of make it fit together as you need to. This is going to happen a lot. Here is the result when I finished all the walls in room 0. And here's the result when I finished all the floors in room 0. You can see here I scaled the floors in the middle because there was a bit of weird space. So instead of putting one floor that was slightly bigger, I just kind of made one really long. Or sorry, instead of making 2 floors that were slightly bigger, I made one that was very long. So now I've added some pillars and such. You can see here it's starting to come together. I'm going to add a roof now, and here we go. You can see it's starting to look a lot cooler. Now, you could add some set dressing here now if you wanted to, like rubble, more pillars, trims on the walls, random props. I'm going to put this gate here because this is going to be the gate that opens from the shortcut. And as you add in more stuff, it will start to feel more like a level, obviously. So I've got these pillars here now I'm going to put against the walls. Move around a bit. There you go. Looks even a bit nicer again still. I'm not going to do this for every room in this video because it will take me hours, but I've added some rubble here now. You can see how it changes. Just these little things add up one at a time to make a complete picture. I've now changed out some of the walls so they're not repeating all the time. Some have these holes in them. I've changed out some of the ceilings so it's not repeating all the time. I've added more rubble and rocks, and here is the final result. Obviously, I haven't done set dressing on all of these rooms, or any of these rooms really, except for the first. I have lots more to add, which I will do off camera, but here is the final result compared to the gray box. So here's our general basic layout without doing any set dressing and without actually adding on a whole bunch of stuff. Now let's talk about why I designed it this way, and I'll show you some things I put into here and why I made the decisions I made. So first off, we have the starting point. This is where the character is going to appear, and you know, if this was connected to some other level, you'd probably approach from a door right behind this green circle to enter this dungeon, so to speak. And now, from there, I have a locked shortcut you can see here. So this is basically going to be a door that you can open once you get into the main chamber with the staircase there and the pillars. And now I also have a door that is locked from the other side. So this is a door you can only open if you approach from the basement area. So if I make a right at the green circle instead of a left and go downstairs. I'm doing this because when the player gets there and he can't open the door, it encourages him to explore further. Furthermore, you can do one of those cool things where you put an item or some kind of shiny thing where you can see it through the metal grate, but you can't get it yet. And obviously, if you were taking the time to make this really cool, you can make the path to get to this item a little more hidden than I have it set up. I'm just doing this as quickly as I can to showcase, you know, some basic design principles, but it's always cool. FromSoft is very famous for basically showing you something, but making it temporarily out of sight, or sorry, out of reach, at least at the time that you're shown the item, and then later on you're able to get it either by finding some secret path or basically unlocking some way to attain the location. Next, I have path to boss A. Basically, this is just a path from the start where you can go to the left room, go down the tunnel, follow the hallway, go down the other tunnel, approach the main chamber where you can then unlock the shortcut, and you can just dip into the boss, which is immediately there at the end of the blue arrow. And finally, I have the path to boss B. So we're going to take a right instead of a left. We're going to go downstairs into the basement. We're going to pass through the tunnel, and then we're going to go underneath what would be the second room through another tunnel, and then we're going to appear at the locked from one side gate, which we can now open. We can access the item or the chest, whatever I have hidden on the other side of it, and then we can go and unlock the shortcut just like before, and then go into the boss room to fight the boss. So obviously this is a very condensed version of some of the design philosophies that I do find seeing in FromSoft. So we have item that is seen but can't be reached through one path. We have multiple branching paths, and we have a shortcut near one of the checkpoints, Mark of Grace or a bonfire, whatever you want to call it. These are things I frequently see in FromSoft games. There's a bunch more things I could add in too that I see in FromSoft games from level design, but with a map condensed like this one, there's obviously only so much I can add. Now, I am going to basically off video set dress this, make this a lot more, I'll say, nice looking. We're going to add in a lot of props and stuff. And in the next video, what I'm going to do is show you how I would light a scene, and then I will show you how I would set up my lighting settings. And I'm going to discuss different ways of getting different lighting effects in the scene, like post-processing and stuff like that, as well as different options for using lighting, like when you should use real-time versus baked. Now, a strong disclaimer, although I do have many hours in level design and world creation, I would say it is not nearly as strong to me as my sense of direction with programming and system structures. So if any of you in the comments are somewhat of an expert in this field and you see me making a mistake, or you think there is a better way to do what I'm doing, please, I would love to hear it, enlighten me. Okay, some rapid fire tips before I go. 1, if you have a scene outside, or anything that's in an outdoor environment, don't make things too flat. Like, flat surfaces rarely occur in a natural environment, and it always looks weird or alien to the mind. Obviously, there are exceptions when you have some areas that are like, flat for a little bit, and then they kind of branch off again, but there should almost be always an unevenness to some degree to any outdoor environments. Next, 2, try to avoid repeating objects. So if you have walls in a crypt, it's going to look very boring to traverse them if every wall is exactly the same. You can break this up by either putting things in front of the walls, like props or a pillar every now and then or such, or you can add different variations of the same wall. So one with a couple bricks missing, one that's chipped on the side, etc., etc. You can kind of get away with more repeating patterns if you have a lot of props in the area, so the player is not constantly having their gaze fixed on the walls. But generally speaking, if your area is a bit more open, try your best to avoid repeating things ad nauseum. 3, this one's very important. Do not begin to set dress or add a bunch of little props and things to your level until you've done a walkthrough, you check the scale, it feels good, because if you put a bunch of stuff in a room and then have to resize the room, you're just going to waste a lot of your time. Just make sure you are set, or at least happy with the current configuration or layout of what's going on before you add tiny details. The tiny detailing part should be in the end. I've lost count because I keep pausing, but next tip. If you find you have a problem with the blank canvas, like if that scares you and you don't know where to start, a really great thing to do is as follows. 1, just think of a general theme. Is it a crypt? Is it outdoors? Are you in a forest? Are you in a desert? And once you got that going, then just make tiny little gardens, is what I heard someone call them. I can't remember your name, man, but whoever said that, it's a great thing to refer to them as. Basically, make small scale rooms or areas to inspire you and to practice some kind of interaction, mechanic, or encounter with enemies. So for example, if I was going to make a dungeon, instead of doing the whole thing, I can make one small room and set up some enemies in there to get a feel of what I want this room to be. And then through that, I can become inspired to make different kinds of rooms or connect other things in certain ways. So you can make a lot of these little gardens, and then when you have a few gardens that you've tried out and you have a few ideas, then you can spring for actually making a larger level. Last tip I give you for this video is something very similar that I preach all the time in coding. Be very clean with your names and stay organized, stay on top of it. Take the time to sort things in their proper game objects, so you have a drop down of walls and floors, and do it by sections. Because if you build too much and wait too long to do this, it's going to be so messy, it's going to slow your work down, and it's going to be exhausting. So take the time to actually put everything in the right place and organize your level by area and even by like structures as you're making it. Okay, I'm sure I forgot some that I will discuss in the next video, but if you have any great tips for level design as well, throw them in the comments. With that being said, that's all for this one, guys. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one where we'll handle lighting, and if we get a chance to and still have the time, we're also going to do optimization. The optimization tips showcase will be scalable for a large scale scene, basically meaning everything I'm going to talk about will be things you want to apply to a semi or even an open world, but I assume that most people watching this video probably aren't trying to tackle an open world on their own. As always, a special thank you to my patrons. A shout out to everybody who takes the time to like and comment on the video to pass it around. I hope you all have a very lovely weekend. I will see you next week.